Whether your business is small or large, your ambitions for it are always big, and so are ours. That's why, no matter what size your business, we have local business relationship managers who'll help you along the way. So with us in your corner, the sky's the limit. To see why we've been awarded Business Bank of the Year 3 years running, visit santanderbusiness.co.uk. Here to help your business prosper. Santander.
Business Moneyfacts Award 2015 to 2017.
Welcome to Black Belt Selling with Stephanie and Anna Scheller. I'm Anna.
And I'm Stephanie.
We are a mother-daughter team who are passionate about taking you to the next level by helping you grow your income through sales training and coaching. On Black Belt Selling, we share content and interview experts to help you kick through those obstacles that are keeping you from reaching the next level. You can learn more about us by joining our Facebook group at www.facebook.com/groups/Black Belt Selling. But I'm very excited about our guest today. This gentleman, we found out, we have a lot in common with him. Matt Miller spent the first 9 years of his career as an Air Force pilot before he went into the private sector to work in both the medical device and advertising fields. And, you know, like everybody, he wanted to be his own boss. So somebody said, hey, have you thought about gumball machines? And that began a 10-year business quest that has brought Matt's company, School Spirit Vending, to the cutting edge of both the vending and school fundraising industries. Matt, thank you for joining us today, and welcome to Black Belt Selling.
Anna and Stephanie, I'm excited to be here. I got to admit, though, I am a little intimidated. Two black-belted ladies in the same family, mother and daughter. I don't know. We'll see if I survive this thing.
Well, should we make it a little bit worse to let him know that of the family of 9, 7 of us are all black belts?
Wow.
Oh, let's not tell him that. No.
It's a family tradition. We've certainly had our fair share of competitiveness pushing us through to accomplish this. And the good news is, Tom, you're at least 1,000 miles away from both of us, so I think you'll survive.
Yeah, but I gotta go back home to Texas at some point, and that puts me a lot closer to you guys at that point. So,
well, when you get here, we'll go out for coffee. So, Matt, tell me a little bit about how you got started in business.
Wow, where do I start? Anna, like you said, I started out in the military and then transitioned to the corporate world, and I found along the way that I hated being told what to do, and I thought that the corporate world would solve that, and then I found out that actually in the corporate world they tried to tell me even more what to do, and the rules always change and they are never in my favor, whereas at least in the military I could predict what Uncle Sam was going to expect and that type of thing. So anyway, my first full year in the advertising world, I ended up being number 2 sales rep out of 750 reps across the country.
Wow.
And my boss thought that I got accolades a little bit too quickly and ended up increasing my quota over 90% the following year. Now, everybody else in our office had a 5 to 10% increase. Mine was, I think, a 95 or 96. Well, I did well, but I didn't have that big of a book of business just sitting around to be sold to. So I went from being a hero to a zero overnight. That decision cost my family about $80,000 in commissions and bonuses the next year, and it ended up putting us into a huge hole financially. So I had to figure out how in the heck I was going to keep food on the table and a roof over our head. And so I started doing anything that I could think of to make money. I was collecting aluminum cans for a while, sold used books on Amazon and Libris and Barnes & Noble and Half.com for several years. In fact, my garage at one point in time looked like a public library with all the books lining the walls. That was great. I made really, really good money, but the challenge was that I had read Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and bought into his whole concept of passive income. So everything I was doing, I was measuring against the 4 quadrants that he talks about in that book. And so I was frustrated, and it just so happened that a good buddy of mine, like you mentioned already, Anna, brought up the whole idea of gumball machines that his young daughters and he had bought and that they had placed in local businesses. And that idea appealed to me for a couple of reasons. Number one, it was very low cost to entry. And number two, the gumball machines did all the selling. So even though a gumball is only a quarter and it takes a lot of them to make a big impact financially, I knew that I could slowly but surely put something together on the side that would be developing income for me while I was still working in my career without me having to be there. So that was kind of the beginning of the whole entrepreneur thing and the whole vending thing. I had $36 that I could afford to spend on a used candy and gumball machine on eBay. I had a few more dollars I could use online to get a couple of ebooks about vending, and literally that's how I started this business. Found my first machine. It was a guy across Houston where we were living at the time, so I didn't even have to pay for shipping. Loaded up my 2 young kids in my 9-8 Honda Accord, drove across town one Saturday, and picked up that machine. And that's kind of the beginning of the whole passive income stream model that we have perfected over the years with vending. And, man, I never thought it would even come remotely close to taking us where we are today. At the time, I was just looking, like I said, to keep food on the table and a roof over our family's head.
Wow. Wow. How long did it take you to get to where you are now? And what do you wish you knew when you were first starting out?
Well, I started School Spirit Vending, which is the company that I head up today, 8.5 years ago. So October of 2007 was when we set up our first school with our program. Mm-hmm. I think the thing that I wish that I understood earlier on was how maybe to acquire money and capital along the way, how to better network and develop relationships that could be mutually beneficial. Believe it or not, I'm an introvert, and so, you know, an introvert is somebody who, when they're in a room of people, they get the energy sucked out of them very quickly. An extrovert is somebody who gains energy by being in that same room. Well, I'm definitely an introvert. I come out when I need to and have been pretty effective at it. But that being said, I prefer to kind of be in my hole at home with my family, doing my own thing, and not being out a whole heck of a lot. If I had learned earlier on the value of those relationships, I think I would have gotten much further, much quicker. But, you know, it is what it is, and God had a plan, and I just had to follow along.
You know, it's funny, a couple of things. I was resonating with what you were saying there, and I feel like every sales rep who has made it really big and done really well for a company has at some point experienced that really bitter taste of the company turning around and messing with their commission check. And it's the number one, you know, I tell all my clients, stop. You cannot mess with your sales rep's commission. As soon as you do that, you will lose the good ones, because the bad news for you is that sales is a transferable skill. So you can take that into any arena, and as soon as you start messing with their commission check, they're not going to sit around and take it for that long.
Mm-mm.
So,
well, what always blew my mind, Stephanie, because I completely agree with you, is the fact that, okay, they've got a commission structure set up. You know, X percentage of the margins of the profits is going to go to pay the sales rep, but then they decide to cap that structure. And, you know,
right.
My thought process is if I can bring in $10 million this year, I should be able to get X percent of that $10 million. But the challenge is, I think you got that corporate structure, and you got everybody up the line that would be getting paid less than that sales rep, and those people feel threatened. What's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, I mean, and it's crazy because the top performers you should be willing to pay them whatever they're willing to go out and make and not be threatened by that.
Mm-hmm. I agree, and I think it is a huge mistake that is made regularly. And speaking of mistakes, one of my favorite questions to ask people who have achieved any level of success, and of course success is defined however you want to define it, but what is, in your opinion, the biggest mistake that you made in getting started?
Wow.
And I'll explain just real quick. I like asking this question. I learn a lot by watching. So Mom will tell all sorts of stories about how I would watch my sister get herself, in so much trouble because she would go get her. So I ask people what their mistakes are, not to make fun of them, not to make them relive their problems, but because I think it provides a valuable learning experience. And as black belts, we're always looking for a way to learn without having to break our own bones. So I'm not picking on you here.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm glad to share. It's the challenge is not me concerned about opening up. The challenge is I've made so many of them along the way. Which one do I pick? I mean, seriously. I mean, guys.
I understand.
The reason why I'm where I am today is because I've got a thick skull, and I was willing to pick myself up again and again and again and again. No matter what was thrown my way, because I didn't feel like I had a choice. But to be honest, probably the biggest mistake I made was financial, in the fact that I'm an optimist. I've always been one. The glass is always half full for me, not half empty. And because of that, as people that are in sales or as entrepreneurs, we have a tendency to overestimate growth and that type of thing, and sometimes we plan our lifestyle around those estimates instead of what is real. And that's probably the biggest mistake I made early on. Is after this got going, I knew it was going to work, and I knew that it was just a matter of time for me continuing to do what I had been doing over and over and over again to finally get the result that my family needed. But along the way, we made some decisions that set us back some financially just because we weren't a little bit more realistic with our estimates.
Mm.
Well, and that's a really important point for people, for us to realize, all of us to realize, because I think it's common among entrepreneurs. We have big dreams, things that start to go well, and I can't tell you how many times I have done the same thing. But the good news is that you don't quit. You keep pushing through. You find ways to resolve the error, the mistake, and and not look at it as, oh, I did something bad, but, oh, look at what I get to learn this time.
Yeah.
I don't have to do this again.
Right. Well, I'm the guy, my wife's the one that will read the instructions and wants to know everything that she can before she makes a decision or what have you. I'm the guy that will just start doing it and figure it out as I go. I'm the guy that'll get the new grill from the big box store. I'll open the box and I'll find the 5 ways how not to put the grill together before she pulls out the instructions, and we get it done right. But along the way, I've learned a lot in the process. And I've learned, for me, the way I'm wired, I learn by doing. And so I will go out and try new things and learn along the way, because what I've realized over the years, and I know you guys can say the same thing, there are very few things in business, if you're careful with what you do, very few mistakes that you make that you can't recover from.
Right.
And so as long as you're wise about what you do, and as long as you're willing to fall forward or fail forward, like John Maxwell talks about in his book, eventually you stick with it and you will succeed. The challenge is too many people don't give themselves enough time. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And get rich quick does not exist, though everybody out there is trying to sell it. It is a process, and we all have struggles that we are going to have to go through to succeed. We talk in our society today about the great athletes and the great success stories, And all we hear about is the money that they make and the fancy cars that they drive and the nice houses that they live in. Nobody talks about the struggle and all the work that went behind doing what they do. And we do a disservice for people in that case in our society every day, because people think that those people just rolled over or had a silver spoon in their mouth and succeeded, and it couldn't be further from the truth. Malcolm Gladwell wrote the book Outliers, and he talks about 10,000 hours to be great at anything. And that doesn't matter if it's selling stuff, if it's, being a concert pianist, if it's being an athlete. It holds true in any of those things. Yes, some of us have giftings in certain areas that help, but ultimately it's persistence, discipline, and hard work that yield the results for anybody in any endeavor anywhere.
Well, Matt, we are a little over halfway through the show now, and I know that you have a phenomenal resource that you wanted to offer our listeners. And so I want to give you that opportunity right now to share before we get into more of your story and how you made it.
Yeah, so vending has been the thing that has allowed me to live the life of my dreams, to provide for my family like I never thought possible. And so with my 12 or so years in the vending industry, I've learned a lot along the way. And so I wrote a book called Live Your Dreams, the top 10 reasons why you need to start a vending business. And your audience, we set up a special landing page specifically for your audience with an opportunity for them to download that for free. And just to get some more insights into our industry and what we do and how we do it, they can go to ssvbusiness.com/black belt and download that. And I hope it helps them in some way as they resolve some of this stuff in their life.
And that was, go ahead, Stephanie.
No, I was going to say it's really valuable, and we always encourage our listeners to make sure they take time to look up this stuff, because the only way you're going to keep growing, the only way you're going to keep learning is check it out. And even if you only get one thing from it, I mean, it's free. You can't beat the price. Right.
So we want our audience to go to ssvbusiness.com/black belt. ssvbusiness.com/black belt. Stephanie, why don't you go ahead? We'll get on to some really important questions I know our listeners are really, really interested in. But, a lot of times people, we all live in a very busy world. What can we offer people who want to do what you're doing, Matt, with limited time commitment?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Anna, because our whole business is built on that. I was working full time. I didn't start the business and stop everything else I was doing in my life. I was a father. I was a husband. I was active in my church. We homeschool our kids, so we have that added responsibility as well. And I had a full-time career that I was doing extremely well at. So I started this on top of all that. To begin with, it was nights and weekends, and eventually I was able to use some vacation time or whatever to put this together. But talk about limited time commitment, that's what we do. Most of our franchise team today, they start out as busy professionals doing other things, but they want to supplement what they do and start a business that can produce passive income without them being there. So we teach them how to use vending to do that and to help the local schools in their area along the way. And so, I mean, I'm the poster child for that. I really am. There was a period of time here 7 years ago where I was following the Dave Ramsey model, and I was delivering pizzas at night for a period of 18 months on top of all the stuff that I already mentioned, because I needed more seed capital for my business. And we were in a place financially where I didn't have the ability to borrow money. So I did whatever I had to do. And I'd put on the silly little Pizza Hut shorts and shirt and hat and had to eat crow on a regular basis from people that I ran into that I knew in my community. Here's this guy, Matt, that everybody knew was, quote, unquote, America's finest Air Force pilot, corporate executive, yada, yada, yada. But here I was delivering pizzas. But I wasn't doing it for them. And I learned not to care what other people thought. And that was a struggle. That was a phase that I had to go through in my life. And because I was willing to do it, we have now come out the other side, and I don't have to do that stuff anymore. But for a period of time, I had to do whatever it took to make it happen.
There's a line that I like to use with people, and I tell them, if you've never thought about quitting, you haven't truly found your success. You're going to, at some point, if you're going for something big enough, you're going to have to do some stuff that you sit there and you go, wow, is this really worth it? And wow, I can't believe I've got to, in your case, deliver pizzas. But when you're really at that point, when you're really fired up by something, you do what you said, whatever it takes to be successful.
Well, the other thing is, too, I think too many of us put all of our eggs in the basket of what we went to school for. And we feel like we are obligated for the rest of our life, in order to get the value out of the money that we spent on that education, to continue to slave away in whatever industry it was, in whatever field it was that we went to school. And I would encourage people to not take themselves so seriously, to realize that they can recover from that, to realize that going to college and getting a degree in a certain field does not have to lock them into that forever. Because let's face it, I was an Air Force pilot, okay? It's an obvious progression from Air Force pilot to vending machine operator, right? That's the path everybody wants to take. No, but there's a lot of guys I knew in that area that would never, quote unquote, stoop to do what I ended up doing, because they felt like they had done, everything that they had done previous in their life would have been for nothing if they turned their back on that career. I was like, what? I went there. I did that. I'm grateful for it. I got the T-shirt. It's time to move on and do something else, because it wasn't ultimately the right fit for what I wanted to do for me and my family. So don't feel like you have to stay where you're at. You can change. Forget about what you did in the past. Do what is right for you now. And in many cases, you won't be doing anything remotely close to what you do now or did in the past, and that's okay. Yeah.
I always remember, and I have no clue how this worked into high school biology, but I always remember the example that the guy gave in the book, and he said, you'll have people who stand in line at the grocery store, and then another line opens up, and they think to themselves, I've been standing in this line for so long, I may as well just stay here. And the whole point of that analogy was they were talking about how, whenever you're looking at an opportunity, whenever you're looking at the future, it should never be about what have I put in already. The question is always about what's the potential for where I'm at. And I think that you just very nicely pointed out, it really doesn't matter. You could have the PhD and be starting over. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing to be insulted by or ashamed by with that. It just means you're moving in the new direction. Life changes. There's no way, I'm not using hardly any of my degrees, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So I know we're coming up on the end here. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and don't worry about what other people think. I use this example. I use this example a lot. I'm actually up here in Wisconsin right now doing some business with one of our franchisees, but also get a chance to spend a couple days with my parents who live up here. And my parents, aside from my wife and my kids, are the most important people in my life to me. But when I'm down in Texas doing my thing every day, living in the now with my family and running my business, I don't think about my mom and dad that much. I just don't. Maybe that's just the way I'm wired, but I think most everybody's the same way. So in a week's time, I probably think about my mom and dad maybe 30 minutes or something. And so if I'm thinking about the people that are the most important in my life, except for my wife and kids, who brought me into this world 30 minutes a week, how much time is that guy you're worried about what he thinks thinking about you? He's not.
Yeah.
So don't worry about what he thinks. Do what you need to do. Get a thick skin, put blinders on, because ultimately you're doing it for you and your family anyway.
Yeah. Now I have to ask, because we are almost on the end here, so what would you say is the best kept secret of all?
Wow. I would say, because this is a show about sales and business and all that, it's numbers. There is no secret. You have to work the numbers. You have to go through the drudgery. You have to make the phone calls. You have to send the emails. You have to do all of those things over and over and over again. And if it means that you reach out to 100 people to get a 5% return or a 2% return, you can look back and get a pretty good feel in your industry what it requires. Well, once you know that, then you have control over how quickly you grow, how many clients you have, and how much of a book of business that you've got. Too many people try to get too far with too little because they're not working the numbers.
Yeah,
That's key.
It is, and every time I get a client, I'm listening to a book called The 10X Rule again, the second time I've gone through it, and it's the same thing. He says, look, set goals that are 10 times bigger than what anyone thinks they can accomplish, and take action that's 10 times bigger than what you think you're going to have to take to accomplish that goal. And people seem to think they can almost skim by, and I think you're right. It all comes down to the numbers. Every time I get a client that's struggling with revenue, it always comes down to, well, what are your numbers? Have you been filling out your tracking sheet? Have you been paying attention to what you're supposed to be doing here? And regardless, it's clockwork. They blush, they look to the left, they look to the right, and then they say, I guess I better go back to that. So we're at the tail end. I'm getting the notice here. We've got to wrap this up. So one more time, can you remind our visitors, our listeners, what the offer is you've got for them and the link that you've got for them to go to?
Yeah, so my business, guys, just so folks know, is we are a franchise company. We help busy professionals develop secondary income streams with School Spirit Vending. And essentially we set up sticker machines in schools with custom stickers for the schools with their mascots and that type of thing. It ends up being a passive fundraiser for the school, and it ends up being a passive income stream for the professionals and their families that we work with. Like I mentioned earlier, I've got a short ebook. It's called Live Your Dreams, the top 10 reasons why you need to own a vending business. And in that book, I share some of the insights of our industry. If you want to download it, I'd love for you to have it. And if you choose to, we can begin a dialogue at that point. So I can help you out in just vending in general if you'd like to learn more, or if you'd like to learn more about our franchise and a turnkey system that's been proven for 8.5 years, doing business in 2,000-plus schools, and has raised $3.5 million for education during that period of time, then you can just go to ssvbusiness.com/black belt, download that, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on with us. This was a pleasure to have you on here. I think we all, obviously, in addition to having stuff in common, we all obviously are on the same level, because I just had a blast talking with you. I know Mom did as well. Thank you guys again for coming on. For our listeners, thank you guys for joining us. I know you got something out of this. Our listeners are great. You guys make us what we are. I encourage you, if you haven't yet, connect with us in the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Black Belt Selling. Go grab a copy of that, the little book, and check it out, because you never know what opportunity is right around the corner for you. In the meantime, I've got to wrap things up here today. So I'm Stephanie, here for Anna, and just for today, we'll make you an honorary member of the Black Belt Selling Group. So thank you so much for joining us on the show. This has been fabulous.
Thanks, ladies.
Awesome. Well, everybody, make it a great week, and we'll talk with you again soon.
Whether your business is small or large, your ambitions for it are always big, and so are ours. That's why, no matter what size your business, we have local business relationship managers who'll help you along the way. So with us in your corner, the sky's the limit. To see why we've been awarded Business Bank of the Year 3 years running, visit santanderbusiness.co.uk. Here to help your business prosper. Santander.
Business Money Facts Award 2015 to 2017.